Our song of gathering this morning is Now Let Us Sing, number 368. Go for it.
My name is Monica, and I am the treasurer on the Board of Trustees. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley. Whether you've been with this congregation a decade or more, or this is your first time visiting, we welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, we welcome you. Whatever your theological stance, we welcome you. Whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. Whatever your heritage, we welcome you. We respectfully acknowledge the territory on which our church building sits as the ancestral homeland of the Munsee, Lenape, and Wappinger people. We have a couple announcements. I think this is the last week or so for collection for Hope's Door. Contact Terry Lucan for if you'd like to make a donation for that. And we have a raffle for a Santa Gourd downstairs. Sherry is leading that up? Question mark? Okay. For the most up-to-date information, please refer to our weekly e-newsletter and check our website frequently. The website is also the place where you can find contact information for our staff, Board of Trustees, and other congregational leaders. Please join us for conversation after the service. Outside? If you're present in the sanctuary and the weather permits, we'll be in the parking lot. If you're watching the live stream, there's a Zoom link for coffee hour in the Saturday reminder email. If you are just recently joining us and would like to receive our weekly e-news, please either fill out a yellow card that's in the pews, or you can email us at uucroton@gmail.com. Please silence your cell phones, and we welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley.
We gather together in worship. We come with open hearts and minds and spirits to the fount of freedom, reason, and tolerance in celebration of individuality within community, in thanksgiving and praise for the legacy of the liberal spirit.
Our chalice lighting this morning is by Leah Durland Jones. As we light this flame, we remember friends and loved ones near and far, and we give thanks. As the fire burns brightly, we open our minds and hearts to new ways of being, and we feel alive. As the room glows with warmth and kindness, we extend our circle ever wider to welcome those who want to come in, and we know love. Now, please join me in saying our unison affirmation, which is printed in your order of service. Inspired by love, our mission is to seek our true nature, connect deeply and openly, and act for justice. Let us now bear witness to the joys and sorrows experienced in our community. If you have a personally significant joy or sorrow that you're willing to share, please come to the microphone to my left, your right, and speak loudly and clearly so that even with your mask on, we can all hear you. The microphone will allow our friends watching virtually to hear what you're saying. I will light a candle for each. When you are done speaking, please use the center aisle to return to your seat. If you would prefer to only have a candle lit without speaking, please just stand or indicate it, and I will light a candle for you.
Good morning, I'm April, and my joy is I had no idea that we were singing hymns today, and just how joyful that was to hear your voices. It was just so moving. So that is my joy. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Pat Krugman. I am joyful to be here. I ran into Susan Cuccinello, who I thought it was her, in the food town, and it was so wonderful to see her. I could think of nothing else than coming this morning. Also, I am still working at Country Children's Center. I am back to the site, which was so difficult for me to be at in May. However, I am working as a shadow. Teachers know what that is when you have a child who needs one-on-one. And I am actually making some progress. He even invited another boy to join us who was crying in the other room. What a thrill. So, to children everywhere,
Hi, this is Betsy Tomic. My little baby Shaquan, who was 3.5 when he came to us, turned 21 yesterday. And so I'm so proud of him because he's become such a nice young man. And I bring it up in part because he went to OWL here and coming of age. And we had a nice dinner and presents last night.
Yesterday was Trans Day of Remembrance. 2021 has been the deadliest year on record, especially for our Black trans women.
Hi, I'm Susie Dugas. I found it to be such a joy to help with the cleanup outside yesterday. I really have not been able to come a lot because it was a Saturday and we had a good turnout, and it was just a joyful, fun day.
Hi, I'm Nanette Kress. Yesterday, my granddaughter, who is 16, participated in the New York State Finals for swimming. And she brought her team in they came in 6 of 30 teams. And she swims 2 hours a day, every day, along with all her AB classes. She's amazing, as are her parents, who are on the pool deck all the time. So it is an absolute joy.
My name is Sherry Brown. It is a joy to have my beautiful, strong friend Cynthia here. She's had a very rough year this last year. She's here celebrating with us today.
We also acknowledge all the unspoken joys and sorrows held within the sanctuary of our hearts, and all those people who have yet to find a spiritual home where they can share their joys and sorrows.
I invite you now to join in the spirit of meditation. You may wish to do so by sitting up straight in your pew or wherever you're sitting if you're online, and put your feet flat on the floor to ground you to the earth. And slowly take in a nice deep breath and gently release it, releasing all of the stress of the week. Every day we experience hunger and yearning for food, for approval, for respect, for love, for meaningful work, for any and enough work, for home, for family, for friends, for health, for healing, for hope, for the departed, for the newly arrived, for the green trees, for the cool, clean waters, for the shade and the heat of the day, and for the stars and night. Every day we are invited anew to be thankful for food, for approval, for respect, for love, for meaningful work, for any and enough work, for home, for family, for friends, for health, for healing, for hope, for the departed, for the newly arrived, for the green trees, for the cool, clean waters, for the shade and the heat of the day, for the stars to light the velvet night. Our hearts, beating in liberating flight, we soar in gratitude for all the gifts we have in this day, in this lifetime of being, and turn again to share this bounty with all that is. Amen, and blessed be. Let us be together in a moment of silent meditation.
Today's reading is called A Blessing in Disguise. It's a Chinese folk tale. A long, long time ago, there was a kind old man who lived on the plains outside the Great Wall of China. The gentle old man had only two passions in his life, collecting rare breeds of horses, and his son, whom he loved more than anything else. The old man and his son would ride their horses every day. They would travel great distances to trade horses, meet new people, and enjoy the good fortune that life had bestowed upon them. One morning, a servant left the stable door open, and one of the old man's favorite stallions escaped. When the neighbors heard the news of the stallion's escape, they came to comfort the old man. They told him they were sorry that he had such bad luck. But, strangely enough, the gentle old man was not upset. He explained to his neighbors that losing the horse wasn't necessarily bad luck. There was no way to predict that the horse would escape. It just happened, and now there was nothing that could be done about it. There is no reason to be upset, the old man said. The neighbors soon realized that there was nothing they could do to help get the horse back, and that they shouldn't feel bad for the old man's misfortune. 1 week later, the stallion came back, and he brought with him a mare. This was not just any mare, but a rare and valuable white mare. When the neighbors heard of the old man's good luck, they came quickly to congratulate him. But again, the old man was not excited. As he explained before, it was not necessarily good luck that had brought him this new and beautiful white horse. It just happened, and there was no reason to get excited over it. Still a bit puzzled, the neighbors left as quickly as they had come. A short time later, while his son was riding the white horse, she slipped and fell. She landed on the son's leg and broke his leg so that he would always walk with a limp. Again, the neighbors came to the old man's house to give their sympathy for the bad luck that had befallen his son. One of the neighbors suggested that the old man sell the mare before anything more bad could happen, and the other said he should take his revenge and kill the mare. However, the old man did neither. He explained to the neighbors that they should not feel sorry for his son, nor anger toward the mare. It was purely an accident that could not be predicted, and there was nothing that he or they could do to change it. At this point, the neighbors thought the old man was crazy and decided to leave him alone. 2 years later, an enemy invaded the country, and all of the old man's neighbors were drafted to defend the country against the attack. Because the old man's son was lame, he did not have to join in the fighting. The war was very bad, and most of the old man's neighbors were killed. But his son was spared because he had been hurt by the white mare 2 years earlier. Very often, when an event takes place that everybody thinks is good luck, the end results are disastrous. In the same way, an unlucky event can bring about happiness. Therefore, you should not lose your will to continue if an unlucky event happens, nor should you be too overjoyed or feel too self-satisfied because of a lucky event, or because something that you desire comes very easily to you. Now please join in singing our hymn, which is number 36, When in Our Music.
Good morning, everyone. It's beautiful to hear you singing. This may be a new hymn for some of us, so I'm going to play through it once so you get used to the tune.
Please rise as you're willing or able.
Here we go.
A friend and colleague of mine, the Reverend Jan Eller Isaacs, was preaching a sermon that happened in a month. They were doing worship themes a lot like we do, and this was a month in which gratitude was the theme. And it makes a lot of sense to talk about gratitude in the month of November, coincides with Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, Jan, who at the time, she's now retired, but at the time was the co-minister at the Unity Church in St. Paul, she drew the Sunday after the 2016 election to preach on gratitude. Nobody said this was an easy gig. In her sermon, which I heard online, they have a podcast, and I've heard this sermon, Jan preached, the title was Cultivating Gratitude. She tells the story of a friend of hers who traveled to India on a personal pilgrimage, and this friend, who she does not name, so unfortunately I just have to call her Jan's friend, lives and learns from one of the most respected gurus in India. And one evening after this guru gave a talk, the students were sitting there asking him questions, and one question that came before him was, what is the greatest difficulty a person can experience in life? And Jan's friend's trying to think of a way that this question could be answered. What could the answer to that be? What will the guru say? And the answer he gave astonished her. He said, the worst state to be in is to be ungrateful. If you suffer from ingratitude, it won't matter what blessings and goodness are in your life, you won't be capable of receiving them. In contrast, if you are grateful while experiencing the most challenging of circumstances, you will be able to recognize the many blessings that you are receiving. Powerful stuff. Simple and yet profound. It has the ring of truth to it because it connects us to our everyday experience. The feeling of gratitude is a feeling like we are surrounded with blessings from even the most mundane things. It's truly, or can be truly, a transcendent religious experience. Meanwhile, ingratitude reminds me of that line from the story of Exodus where it says, God hardened the heart of Pharaoh. Ingratitude is when our hearts are hardened and closed off from the world. None of the blessings and joy of life are able to get inside of us. And she confessed this was a little bit how Jan felt that week after the election. She remembered the story of her friend visiting the guru in India and his advice. Frankly, she says, I was angrily trying to bat the story away. But being the amazing minister and preacher that she is, Jan knew that if there's a story that you're trying to bat away, that means you have to preach on it. And so she did. According to our reading this morning, the Chinese parable, of that Chinese parable, one answer is to remain open to all the possibilities of life. The old man in the story leaves open his judgment of the events and experiences that he has, while everyone else around him is kind of quick to jump to one conclusion or another. He understands that everything is not always what it appears to be. On the one hand, he seems to enjoy the good things that occur, while being wary that the other shoe could kind of fall. And yet at the same time, when those bad things do happen to him, he's able to hold out hope that something good will be coming up along the way. What's so extraordinary about this fellow is that he can hold both points of view seemingly at the same time with the same amount of passion. Usually we tend to fall down one side or the other. Pessimists understand that good things could turn into bad things, but they struggle to hold out hope when bad things do happen. Conversely, the optimist is able to keep his or her spirits buoyed by hope when something negative comes along, but naively thinks, or seems to think, the sun will always be shining when good fortune comes his or her way. But this fellow in the old Chinese story is able to see both at the same time. It's kind of like an ambidextrous perspective on life. Nothing was sticky to him. And yet, I can't help but wonder if this fellow really was grateful for the things that occurred to him in his life. Sure, he probably could have dealt with Donald Trump getting elected president better than Jan, or most of us, for the rest of that matter, would have. But is rueful disinterest the same as gratitude? I'm not sure it is. I believe that gratitude is an important spiritual practice. Too often, it's so easy to go through life taking everything we have for granted. Our house, our car, our job, our family, our health. There's so many places around the world where these things are great luxuries and not the everyday kind of mundane experiences that they are for most of us. To have a spiritual practice of gratitude means that we make ourselves become mindful of these basic things that every other day too often we take for granted. Someone once asked the Christian mystic Meister Eckhart, "What is the greatest prayer?" And he said simply, "Thank you." So I'm all about the practice of gratitude, make no mistake of that. But Jan's sermon, actually the guru she mentions in the story, pushes us to go deeper. Gratitude is the most important spiritual practice, he says. So how do you find gratitude in those difficult parts of life, sort of along the lines of the Chinese folktale? Those things that we think of as tragic and painful experiences that we have. Well, in her book, Start Where You Are, one of my favorites, Tibetan Buddhist writer and teacher Pema Chodron, shares another story, this one about her husband. I remember so vividly a day in early spring when my whole reality gave out on me. Although it was before I had heard any Buddhist teachings, it was what some would call a genuine spiritual experience. It happened when my husband told me he was having an affair. We lived in northern New Mexico. I was standing in front of our adobe house, drinking a cup of tea. I heard the car drive up, the door bang shut. Then he walked around the corner and without warning told me that he was having an affair and he wanted a divorce. I remember the sky and how huge it was. I remember the sound of the river and the steam rising up from my tea. There was no time, no thought. There was nothing, just the light and a profound, limitless stillness. Then I regrouped, picked up a rock, and threw it at him. When anyone ever asks me how I got involved in Buddhism, I always say it was because I was so angry with my husband. The truth is that he saved my life. When that marriage fell apart, I tried hard, very, very hard, to go back to some kind of comfort, some kind of security, some kind of familiar resting place. Fortunately for me, I could never pull it off. Instinctively, I knew that annihilation of my old, dependent, clinging self was the only way to go. All of us will be tasked with that annual spiritual exercise that goes around the Thanksgiving table. Tell us something that you're grateful for. Now, I don't have a problem with this per se, although I've always thought it was kind of a lame question. I have, in my time in ministry, written sessions for small group ministry and covenant groups, and I gotta say, that question really isn't a great one. Try and punch it up a little bit this year if you can, or even better, give an answer they don't expect. Imagine what Pema Chodron would have said to that question after her infamous cup of tea. She means it when she says that this was a religious experience. She really means it when she says, and she talks about this experience a little bit more in some of her other writings, that her ex-husband was her best spiritual teacher because her anger at him just would not go away. It would not leave her alone. Children's anger stayed with her and would not let her go. It would not allow her to be lax in her practice. She had to move forward, to go deeper, to practice with letting go and forgiving him, not because she had suddenly turned into such a great person, but because she had to find peace. That going deeper with anger has made Pema Chodron one of the premier voices of Tibetan Buddhism, arguably Buddhism in general, in the English-speaking world. No one writes and speaks more eloquently than she does on how to let go and still authentically deal with difficult life situations, because she had to do that work herself. At some point, Pema Chodron was able to let go of her anger towards her ex-husband and how he treated her. That letting go, quote unquote, is the true meaning of the Buddhist idea that sometimes gets awkwardly translated as non-attachment. It means that the emotion of anger or hatred or lust or whatever it is doesn't hook you anymore. It's there, but it's no longer sticky, so to speak. You see and experience those emotions, but yet retain your freedom from them to do and live as you wish. They no longer dominate your mind and heart. That's what enlightenment is. It's extraordinarily hard to accomplish, and it feels like being grateful for everything. Be grateful for everything. 4 simple words that point down the path of freedom, compassion, and relief from our suffering. Yet 4 words could not be harder to live into. Be grateful for everything. Kind of a metaphysical universalism, don't you think? Love everything. Now, these are pretty words. Nice thoughts to contemplate on a brisk autumn morning in the Hudson Valley. But how do we live them out? For living them out is the hard part. I was reflecting on some of this with my friend Bill a week ago when I was at a meeting with my ministerial study group in Illinois. And we were reflecting on the difficulty that universalism presents to us. Actually, it's the same challenge universalism presents to everybody and has always presented to everybody. Our spiritual ancestors made it abundantly clear that, if not painfully clear, that God's love applies to everyone, no exceptions. Yet we naturally don't like that. Our hearts and minds, we want to divide the world up into the good guys and the bad guys, the sheep and the goats, the saved and the damned, the Wolverines and the Buckeyes, Americans and Russians, someone to love and someone to hate. And yet, our beloved universalist ancestors tell us time and time again that while humanity's love may be conditional and requires all these dualities, God's love is infinite and overcomes all of those categories that we want to put on the world. So that if you are a radical leftist, socialist, pacifist UU minister, and one of your congregants goes to war or goes into the military and comes back with PTSD, what do? Ignore them because you don't like the military? You can't do that. Indeed, we mused, universalism doesn't stop there. We're called to love every single rioter on January 6th, regardless of our personal opinions of them. We're called to love Kyle Rittenhouse and the murderers of Ahmaud Arbery. Not just merely tolerate, but love, as Jesus would. That is tough stuff. I don't know about you, but I can't do it, to be perfectly honest. I'm not there yet in my spiritual development. So when we say be grateful for everything, Pema Chodron isn't messing around. She means every damn thing that's happened to you, because if it didn't happen to you, you would not be who you are right now in this present moment. Every event in our lives is like that strand in the interdependent web. Tug on one too hard, and you lose who you are. She really is grateful to her philandering ex-husband. It made her practice go deeper. She had something tangible that drove her forward. Now, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who've gone through a divorce, or colleagues. I work with colleagues who've been asked to leave their congregations, in some cases forced out of their congregations. And they've had to struggle with this, the rawness of that pain. The terrible loss of something so precious to them, it's almost more than they can bear at times. How could anyone be grateful for it? And yet, when life, in its ever-changing impermanence, presents something like that to you, what else are you going to do? What choice do you have? I asked my friend Bill. You can either let it destroy you, or you can use it as a source for spiritual transformation. To me, the answer was the latter. It was obviously the latter. But no, not obvious, Bill said. Plenty of people have let it destroy them. They have swallowed that negative experience and let it turn them bitter and angry at life and other people. They have closed their hearts, and Pharaoh's was made as hard as stone, and spent their days blaming others for their negative experiences. Indeed, he reflected, it may be the more common choice, unfortunately. Letting something like that level of loss really touch you. To let our guards and our barriers around our tender spots, to dare to truly let it break our hearts. In the faith that you will be rebuilt again in a more loving and tender way. Well, that's a tall order. Bitterness and anger are too common. They lead to the dark side. My friends, let loss break your heart. You are more resilient than you think you are. Pema Children shows us the way of what can be possible if you allow that pain to be spiritually transformative. While you wouldn't wish it on anyone, and it sure as hell wasn't part of God's plan or anyone else's plan, it might just be an experience that you look back on and say, I'm grateful for that. Now that would make for some interesting conversation around the Thanksgiving table this year, wouldn't it? When they go around and say, what's your name one thing that you're grateful for, and everyone says family, or they my health, share something that broke your heart in the past year that you have come around to and are grateful for. Say, getting fired, or the affair my husband or wife had, or the kids getting diagnosed with ADD. Watch as the jaws drop around the holiday table as you regale them with your tale of spiritual resilience and transformation. At the very least, they'll never ask you to do that again next Thanksgiving. So, as one of my old therapists used to say to his patients before we would go off on Christmas or Thanksgiving to be with our families, he would say, may your holidays be disturbing and insightful. Happy Thanksgiving. I love you all, without exception. Go in peace. Amen. And this is our first Sunday singing. You may have noticed a little theme running through our hymns. I don't know. Hymn number 108. 108's a sacred number in Buddhism, by the way, so I always kind of like this hymn. My life flows on. Please rise as you are willing and able. I feel
Each week, we make an offering from the bounty we are blessed to enjoy. We do this in a spirit of love and generosity, aware that we have benefited from those who have gone before, those who in their turn gave generously. Our offering goes to support the work of love and justice undertaken by this community. Today's offering will also be shared with PrideWorks. Please refer to our e-newsletter or website for more information. You can make your donation in several ways. If present in the sanctuary, you may give cash or a check in the offering plate as it comes by. You may also scan the Q code in your order of service. From your homes, you can make your donation via credit card or PayPal using the links provided in the e-newsletter. Please remember to give a little extra to compensate for the 3% surcharge. Or, if you prefer, you can always mail us a check. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. Please join me in the dedication of the offering. The words are in your order of service. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith. Please join me in extinguishing the chalice. The words are found in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our closing words are from my good friend and teacher, the great historian Charles Howe. May we go forth from this place thankful for the life that sustains and renews us, and open to the grace that surrounds and surprises us. May we go forth from this place with openness and with thanksgiving.
As I say, never heard you sing before.
That's right, yeah, that's true.
That's the first time you ever heard us sing.